On the line, we got Odyssey NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Odyssey original podcast, The Best Football Show, featuring daily breakdowns of all the most exciting moments across the league. What's up, Baldy?
Well, Spike, I'm actually leaving Lane Johnson's house here, just out in over at the barn, and saw the phone ringing. I said I should pick it up and see what's going on at WIP today.
How's Lane doing? All right?
Lane's good. He looks good, man. I told him. I said he looked like his arms are bigger, and he lost some weight for that WWE fight thing that him and Kelsey did a couple weeks ago, but he's gained it all back, man. He looks real good. Like he just got done working out over at NovaCare and just telling me about like the commitment and the team and the guys getting after it right now. So it's it sounds like everything's going in the right direction.
I got to be honest. Now I know Lane Johnson, even from when they picked him. I know he's always been a wrestling guy. So when I saw the two guys in the in the luchador masks or whatever with the Eagle stuff, I figured one was Lane. But I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't scared to death with him in the ring for WrestleMania. I was like, oh no, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? I mean, the team since he's been here has been one team when he plays and a completely different team when he doesn't. I mean, what a great player.
Yeah, he's a great player. In fact, we were just talking about his style of play is just so unique. I mean, he's a guy that could play a long time in this league. And, if he just continues, he's just such a professional, taking care of himself and looking after all the little things, and got his nutritionist and his strength coach and all the things he's got. But, he's into the whole thing, though, man. He's into the off seasons. He's always into training. He's staying on top of it. He likes being around the young guys. He's just got a professional, really professional attitude about everything.
And last question on Lane, just because you brought him up, there has been some talk. He last few years, he's had injuries here and there. Yeah. There has been some talk about the idea of his replacement, and maybe if he only plays a couple of years. Do you have a gut feeling on his near and long-term future?
He hears everything.
Yep.
I think as long as he's playing at or near the level that he's been at, and if he's reasonably healthy, I can see him playing, 4 more years for sure, 4 or 5. He knows all the guys who played a long time, the Bruce Matthews and Jackie Slater. Like he's really tuned into the whole history of the game. Like he'd like to be thought about, one day Hall of Famer and longevity and all that kind of stuff. So it's not lost on him. But I don't think he's looking to walk off into the sunset after this year or anything like that.
Good. We lost one of those guys. We can't lose two of them that quickly to each other. So I'm asking you this. So first round tomorrow night, and this is the question: is if you were running an NFL team, if you were running an NFL team making a draft pick, what percentage is tape? What percentage is talking to the guy? What percentage is measurables?
The tape is the tape. So that's the most important thing. But right there next to it is you've got to figure out, and however you do this, does this guy love football? Does he love it? Is he consumed by it? Does he think about it all the time? How good does he want to be? I got to find that out, because all the measurables and all the talent doesn't mean anything, because it's never going to get used properly. So I got to find out just the love and the commitment of the game. That's as important, if not more important, than the tape that you watch.
Baldy, the report today is the Eagles are interested in trading up, and at least today, it could be for a receiver, maybe even a tight end. Why do you think that is, and what would your reaction be if they did go up and get a receiver? A good use of resources, or not really?
Well, probably it's not a great history of first-round receivers being super successful and getting to the second contract. There's a big fail rate there. I think it would I think for them to move up, and I think Howie's going to move. I don't think he's staying there at 22. It's got to be the right player. I think if there's a particular offensive lineman there that's maybe slides past Seattle 16, I can see Howie making a move for that. If it's a particular corner, I can see Howie making a move for that. A receiver, I think if he does move for a receiver, I'm not saying he won't, and it won't shock me if he does. But it's got to be a particular receiver, like one guy that they covet more than any others outside of the top 2 or 3 maybe. But I would say that, I don't know, I'm just throwing a name out there and I don't know this, but if Doomsday slipped for some reason because quarterbacks or tackles or whatever, like I could see the Eagles being really interested in a player like that.
Howie had mentioned they did a press availability about a week ago, and Howie had talked about the idea of drafting a player high and that player maybe not contributing or starting right away. What's your thought on a first-round guy that isn't a player right away?
Well, is it because he's not good enough right away, or is it because he has a lot to learn, but the talent's there and the want-to is there? I have to know why he's not starting. I think if they draft a corner in this first round, they've done a ton of work on corners. It's certainly a position of need. Is Isaiah Rodgers, is James Bradbury, is Darius Slay just better? And when the time is right, they move those guys, a player like that, into that position. I mean, sometimes you draft for the future like that at a particular position. I always remember like when they drafted Dillard and he didn't start. I'm like, why don't they put him in at guard and get some value for him? Now it turns out he didn't really love football to begin with, and they missed on the pick. But I think you got to try to find value as much as you can, no matter where somebody is picked, especially if they're a first-round pick, and especially if you trade up for the first-round pick. Like, you don't want to put pressure on saying he's going to be a day-one starter. I get that. You want him to go out there, earn the position. But you'd like to think that if you trade up in the first round for a player like Fletcher Cox, like they did back then, like he's going to be a player and he's going to be ready to contribute. Might not start right away, but he's going to contribute right away.
Baldy, we'll get back to the draft in 1 second, but you mentioned Isaiah Rodgers. I'm curious, what are they getting in Isaiah Rodgers? Obviously, he had the year off because of the gambling suspension, but what did you kind of see before that, and did they have a chance of maybe getting a starter here in Isaiah Rodgers?
Well, I think you're going to get a hungry Isaiah Rodgers. The game got taken away from him, and so sometimes you sit out and you just realize just how important the game is. You hope that's happened, and I think it has. But you're getting a long, talented corner, long arms, long limbs, runs pretty good. I think the guy that he's been mostly a zone corner in Indianapolis, but I think that he's a guy that, could play a variety of styles, but certainly a guy that can line up and play on Sundays in this league.
Talking to Odyssey NFL insider Brian Baldinger, we were talking earlier about even for the people whose job it is, for experts, drafting is hard. There are so many factors that go into it working, right situation, right kid, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do you think there is one way that teams miss the most? That's something that they look at too much or they don't look at enough that is a more consistent way to miss than other ways?
I think they put way too much stock in stuff that comes out of the combine. How they run, how fast they are, what their 20-yard split is. Like, I think there's just too much emphasis on that. I mean, for every player that runs, like Xavier Worthy ran at the 40, you have Devontae Adams who ran a 4.6 coming out of Fresno, but he's as good a receiver as there was in 2014. Mike Evans, pick a guy, but I mean, he's as good as anybody from that draft. He was the 8th receiver taken, but they said he had the best releases, he had the best hands. He was the most committed player at that position. So I think they pay too much attention to a lot of that kind of stuff to slot these guys, and not enough not necessarily just the tape, but understanding how important the game is to somebody and how the tape is just the beginning of what they're going to be. They're going to be much better pros than they were college players, and I think that's where they miss.
Baldy, last thing for me here tomorrow night, obviously on the clock, 22. Could trade up, could trade back, but about 24 hours out, what's your prediction for who is the Eagles draft pick tomorrow night?
I would say a corner makes sense. I think that's probably, like I said, they've done a lot of work on corners, interviewing them and working them out and all that stuff. I'd say corner unless one of these elite offensive linemen drop. I could see them taking an offensive lineman. And, just making that the strongest position group in the league. And if there's one or two guys that, like I said, probably get past Seattle, I can see Howie moving up to go get one of them.
I appreciate it, Baldy. Now, Ike isn't in it at work today. He's having an issue with his home. We've been talking today, and we're 0 for 3 in people who, when you're at your house, there's something wrong, fix it themselves. Are you a guy who something goes wrong in the house, you YouTube it, figure it out, fix it yourself, or do you just call somebody?
I'll give it an effort. I'm not going on YouTube to try and figure out how something works.
I need a Baldy breakdown of you.
No, but for example, I've got a TV in my living room that hasn't worked in 6 months, and I kind of know where to go to fix it. And I could call Best Buy and get a new TV, and yet I'm like, I'll just go to another room and watch something if I want to watch it. So I guess that might answer the question.
It sure does. It sure does. I appreciate you, Baldy. Thank you, man.
All right, guys. You bet. Enjoy Thursday.
All right, man.
Thanks, Baldy.
That was Odyssey NFL insider Brian Baldinger. Make sure to follow the Best Football Show with Brian Baldinger on the Odyssey app or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.